Thanks for kicking it with us on your Saturday here on CBS Sports HQ. I am Haley Sutton. 1 week of NFL training camps are officially in the books as teams try to put the finishing touches on their game plans going into the 2025 season. Now, some teams, like the New England Patriots, hope their talent can make a second-year leap. And I got to be honest with you guys, things aren't looking too shabby out in Foxborough. Quarterback Drake Maye ready to take over the reins after a rookie year that saw him toss for over 2,200 yards and 15 touchdowns, but with some new weapons lining up for him. Experts are expecting Maye to take a huge leap in year 2. He's been working out with his new wide receiver in Stefon Diggs, building some chemistry. Here's more from the second-year quarterback on his relationship with head coach Mike Vrabel and making that leap.
I think he does a great job of kind of giving me, kind of points where I can improve or points where, hey, maybe do this. I think he's also kind of let me go and kind of see where I'm at. And I think it's kind of a challenge for me to kind of lead this football team and lead this offense.
So for more on the buzz around training camps, let's head out and check in with our NFL analyst, Tyler Sullivan, who was in Foxborough this week. And Sully, there are big expectations in year 2 for Drake Maye. You kind of heard a little bit of his mentality going into the season, but what are your expectations for him?
Yeah, Drake Maye was kind of the only silver lining of the 2024 season. Again, another 4-13 year for the New England Patriots back-to-back. But the reason why there is promise of a turnaround in 2025, in part, is because it does feel like they've answered the question at quarterback, and Drake Maye flashed during his rookie season. And now the Patriots have spent the offseason surrounding their young quarterback with a ton of talent. And we've seen the potential with him. We see the raw ability. We see the downfield throwing. We see the sneaky athleticism as a runner. He kind of did a little bit too much. They've been emphasizing him to kind of scramble and continue as a passer. But overall, the tools are there for Drake Maye. Now the question is, have the Patriots surrounded him with enough talent to ascend this team to a more respectable level? The guys that I'm looking at so far in training camp is the wide receiver position. Stefon Diggs was cleared. He's able to practice. I would say not fully, but I would say around 90% if we want to put a percentage on it, because he does sit out a few of the sessions there, especially coming off of the torn ACL. But overall, he has been making it a point to throw to his new #1 wide receiver. In the first day of training camp during 11-on-11s, the first throw of the first period went to Stefon Diggs. The second period, the first throw went to Stefon Diggs from Drake Maye. So he's looking to build that chemistry with Stefon Diggs, and if those two are able to unlock one another, that is only going to help this offense reach new heights.
It's been fun to see them develop that chemistry, because when you look at the wide receiver room as a whole, Sully, there's a lot of competition going on in that room, so it'll be interesting to see what it looks like behind Diggs. It'll also be interesting to see if they decide to bring in Christian Wilkins, who we know was just released by the Raiders after the team felt he didn't handle his rehab properly for a foot injury. What excites you about the potential, or doesn't excite you about the potential of Christian Wilkins out in Foxborough?
Yeah, no, that certainly would be a massive addition, and that's kind of been the theme for the New England Patriots this offseason. As much as we talk about Stefon Diggs and what these pieces on offense could do, Morgan Moses on the offensive line as well, they really doubled down on their strength, which was their defense. You bring in Milton Williams, you have Christian Gonzalez, but you pair him with Carlton Davis. If you want to continue doing that, Christian Wilkins makes a lot of sense. You see the numbers here of a few years ago, 9 sacks and 23 quarterback hits, and they are familiar with him. You got to remember, too, the organization has at least seen him in Miami as a Miami Dolphin, so they know the kind of player that he could be. Josh McDaniels also with the Las Vegas Raiders during that time as well, so there is familiarity with the player. And the thing that I would be interested in is if they do bring in a talent like that, it really gives you a lot of flexibility on the interior. I mentioned Milton Williams coming in as a high-priced free agent. You put him paired with Christian Barmore, who's now down, by the way, to 305 after playing at 325 over the last 2 years. He is saying that he's in the best shape of his life, lighter, faster, quicker. You have then Christian Barmore, Milton Williams, and possibly Christian Wilkins on that interior. That makes life a lot more difficult for the elite quarterbacks that they'll play this season.
And how about this, Sully? The Patriots are going to open the season against the Raiders on September 7th. So could you imagine if that were to come true? That That game on CBS, by the way. Let's move on and talk about the Falcons, Sully, because there has been some buzz surrounding this team behind Michael Penix as he officially takes over the reins. He's feeling confident, though. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say about his team this season.
The potential, we should be the best in the league. You know, with the guys we got around us, you know, we got a great offensive line as well. You know, those guys work extremely hard in the trenches. You know, with Coach Leffert out there leading those guys, doing a great job with those guys. You know, we should be unstoppable. So that's our goal. We want to be number one in all the categories on the offensive side of the ball. So.
I mean, you heard the man, Sully. He said they should be unstoppable. What do you think? Is he telling the truth?
Well, they should be, because if you look over the last few years, they have drafted almost exclusively on the offensive side of the ball. You have Bijan Robinson, you have Drake London. You even go in last year and got an underrated wide receiver in Darnell Mooney in free agency, or via trade, mind you. So they have the pieces there. My question is what is Michael Penix? Because last season, I think it's kind of a tale of two different stories. One side is he passed the eye test for me. He looked like a first-round quarterback, a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, but you look at the numbers, 58% completion percentage, a 78.6 passer rating in his 3 starts last season. So what is it? Is it the stats, or is it what we saw on the field? My thinking is he passed the eye test for me. I think that he is going to be a much better quarterback than what the Atlanta Falcons have had over the last few years, even prior to last season, because Kirk Cousins was fine, but we all knew that at some point that was going to peter out and they were going to usher in Michael Penix, who they took in the first round. But the years past prior to that, it was Taylor Heineke, it was Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder. There was not a lot there to really cash in on those first-round investments at the skill positions on the offensive side of the ball. So if Michael Penix is an above average or even just an average quarterback, he should be able to get to the ball to those pass catchers and those elite skill position players like Bijan Robinson, like Drake London. And if he's able to do that, then yes, they have the talent to be one of the better offenses in the NFL. But again, it rests on the arm of Michael Penix Jr.
Well, listen, if you're going to be the best, you got to beat the best. And the Falcons are going to take on the defending champion Buccaneers to open the season. We know the Bucs have dominated that division, so we'll keep our eye on it. We got to get to Cincy, though, Tyler, because finally we have pen to paper between the Bengals and their first-rounders, Stewart. Of course, they agreed to move $500,000 of Stewart's signing bonus to be paid up front rather than later in the year. I mean, are you breathing a sigh of relief now that we can finally move past this?
Haley, our long national nightmare is over. It was the weirdest saga in the world because, again, when you talk about these rookie contracts, for the most part, they're already predetermined. But somehow Cincinnati finds a way to get into a contract dispute with a contract that is, again, pretty much already set in stone. But I think now we can move forward here with the Bengals and start looking specifically with Stewart is how is he going to help this team in 2025? Because we've talked a lot about it, the issues on the defensive side of the ball with the Cincinnati Bengals. That really has what has precluded them from being in that Super Bowl conversation, because when you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, you should be talked about like a team that can rival for a Super Bowl. But because of the poor play on defense, they have been unable to. Now, my question here with Stewart is, what is he going to be as a rookie? Because we see the potential, we see the raw ability, but in college, the production wasn't necessarily there. You're talking about in 3 seasons total during his collegiate career, 4.5 sacks. And now that doesn't tell the whole story. You go over the last 2 years of his collegiate career, he had around 65 pressures, which was 8th most in the SEC. So he has been able to apply pressure to the quarterback, but hasn't been able to get home. I think that he'll be able to translate pretty well into the NFL, but it also doesn't tell the whole story, because as much as we're talking about Stewart, what happens now with Trey Hendrickson? Is Stewart a complement to that defense, or is he a replacement for Trey Hendrickson? Because that's a big difference. If you're expecting him to replace a guy that had 17.5 sacks a year ago that led the league, that's a much taller ask than being a contributing player to that defense.
It is certainly going to be interesting. If only Trey Hendrickson was available to maybe help Stewart make that transition. Who knows? We'll see when that situation gets sorted. But we know the Bengals and the Browns are going to face off in Week 1. But, Sully, you know, no one beats the drama of my California Cowboys, who continue to drag out those contract talks with Micah Parsons. The good news is we're not going to talk about him today. We're going to go to the other side of the ball, where Dak Prescott finally looking, sounding, feeling healthy. He's got a wide receiver tandem that could take this team to new heights. You know me, I am cautiously optimistic about this team always, but tell me something good here. How are we feeling about the Cowboys?
Well, you should be feeling good because, as of what you just said, Dak Prescott's healthy. That is the number one thing for this team at the moment, because when Dak Prescott is healthy, and I actually wrote a story about this on CBSSports.com, looking over some best bets prior to the season, he's an automatic for 4,000 passing yards when he plays a full season. You can get that at plus money at various books. But to me, that is the crux here. If all of a sudden you don't have your $60 million a year quarterback, obviously that's going to put you behind the 8 ball, especially in a division now that is increasingly more competitive. You have a Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles in there. You have a team that was in the NFC Championship in the Washington Commanders. Who knows if Russ cooks in New York? We'll see what happens there. But the Dallas Cowboys need their starting quarterback to be fully healthy for a full season for them to really be competitive. But we talked about this even before we went on. Specifically, I think they need Dak Prescott to come out hot to start the year. They have the Philadelphia Eagles in the opener in Philly. That's going to be difficult. But this opening schedule here, relatively soft. It should allow them to build up some wins, which is going to be extremely important because after the bye, it is an absolute gauntlet of a schedule. They're going to need to create a little bit of a cushion for themselves before they take on the Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Detroit Lions, the Minnesota Vikings. It is a murderer's row of playoff teams from a year ago. So Dak Prescott needs to be healthy for that, obviously, but needs to come out of the gates firing, build up some wins, create that cushion to help yourselves at the end of the season. Because as you see here, it's not just playoff teams from a year ago. And as you noted before we went on, look at all those primetime games as well.
Primetime Cowboys.
Chiefs on Thanksgiving, Lions Thursday night football, Vikings Sunday night football. It's tough. And you have that Christmas Day game as well in week 17. I mean, it's just all Cowboys all the time. And that's usually how it goes in the NFL. But overall, again, that start of the schedule, week 2 on, Giants, Bears, Packers will be tough, Jets, Panthers. All of those should be winnable games. Those are the areas where they can build up that win cushion and help you on the back end of the schedule when it gets tough.
Listen, like I said, being cautiously optimistic, but I like what CeeDee Lamb said earlier this week. He said, quote, "I like us versus anybody. We'll see y'all in September." So Tyler, we will see you in September and see what this Cowboys team can do. Appreciate the time this morning. The NFL is going to return to your televisions on CBS on Sundays starting September 7th. You can catch your local game live on your local CBS station or streaming on Paramount+.